Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of It's Not Just the Numbers. It's Not Just the Numbers is a podcast designed for accounting and bookkeeping firm owners who want to build their advisory services practice, starting with client accounting, also known as bookkeeping. We know that it's not just the numbers when it comes to being successful with client accounting services, client accounting and advisory services, also known as CAS. And this podcast dives deep into the world of CAS, sharing our experiences from working with hundreds of firms around the world. Plus, we'll talk to practitioners who'll share their insights of what has and hasn't worked for them as they build a business that deviates from the traditional accounting model. My name is Damien Greathead, and I'm sitting in a gloomy Sydney, and my co-host Penny Breslin sitting in, where are you coming from today, Penny?
Oceanside,
California. Penny, how are you today?
all right. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Penny, in our last episode, we talked about team. We talked about the importance of structuring your team differently to a traditional tax practice. We talked about a number of roles within the practice, but also what we started to touch on was this idea of AI and starting the conversation, starting the discussion of, is AI a team member? Is AI a tool that we use in our practice? Is it all of the above? And then also, how we think about our teams, how do we think about the training and development of our teams change as a result of AI? Because I think we are in uncharted territory when it comes to AI and what this means for our teams moving forward. So over to you, Penny. What do you think in terms of AI, team member or tool?
For me, it's a team member. But when I need to create something I'm going to reuse, it becomes a tool. So I use it as both. And whatever we say here could be obsolete in 2 weeks. So
That's great.
that is the dilemma. And I think that's not only the amazing part of it, but it's the scary part of it too. I use it. It's a team member when I need to bounce ideas off of it.
Yeah. Yep.
When I have questions, when I want to know how to do something, it's a team member that can help me find that solution. It's a tool, like it was this morning, when I said, okay, I want to embed this code into this other code so I can wrap it around and deploy it on a website. Give me the code to do that properly embedded in this app. And it's wrote it out and it said, would you like me to make it for you? And I went, yes. Then it was a tool.
Well, I mean, in theory, it's still a team member then, because back in the day, you still can. You would hand that task to an individual. Yeah. So in that example, it too is a team member. The team member's using AI as its tool, but it still is very much an extension of yourself. And
yeah, I think when you look at
6 months ago, would you have been able to do that yourself? Write the code for a website?
No, God, no. I couldn't do it myself right now, for crying out loud. I mean, I would like just lose my mind having to do that. It's not my forte. But I think that the agents and what I did in that AI is somewhat different than the AI that we see in apps right now that have been released that are embedded in apps. A lot of that is robotic processes. That's serendipitously called AI because they can now. I mean, I think it's kind of like cloud accounting and document management system. It's very much of a marketing terminology.
And by robotic process, Penny, is that sort of machine learning, as in it's doing the same things on a regular basis, so it's learning to look at things, put particular numbers in particular boxes, and that is very much robotic learning.
Yes, that's
or robotic processing,
learning.
which
is
machine learning, which is I guess one classification of AI. I mean,
Yeah, it
in
is. It's a
theory, it is artificial
classification.
intelligence, but maybe at the lowest level of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it's just a piece of the puzzle that's out there. And it's not just like the robotic processes have to be reminded, different browsers, different apps, the app gets up.
Or trained. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
trained, yeah, it all has to be trained. But like, for instance, yes, 2 days ago, we were asked to review a file and brand new client for this particular company, and they were Canadians. And so it was a Canadian file. And our team was given the job of reviewing the file to figure out what was going to be needed to clean up this file and bring it present. And then in the middle of writing it, I asked another question. I said, how far do you want to go back? And she goes, well, right now, 2019, but that might change when I find out when the last tax return. And I'm thinking to myself, I would ask that question first, but hey, not me. Okay. So I took the data that my team had linearly pulled out and said, okay, here are all our questions. Here's what needs to be done. This is where the file's at. These are the reconciliation. Here are the documents. Here are the questions we're asking based on the data that's in there about assets, whether or not something is an asset, whether or not this loan has been closed, things like that. Here's a series of transactions that are already in the file that have not been categorized. Here's the number of transactions that haven't been classified, even though classes are used in this file. So they wrote all of this stuff up. They did it in an Excel spreadsheet. And I said, the average business owner out there is not going to look at that. And then when we send it back to the accounting company, they need to realize how complicated this file is, because they might undercharge. So that's when I used AI. I stripped everything out of it that was related to a company, so no company names showed up or anything. I took that Excel file my team created, and I used Claude for this. I went in, I have the max account for Claude, so I can ask it questions after questions after questions. And so I just, I put it in there, prompted it with, this is a Canadian accounting company who has a client that needs and I named the type of file it was, the software, the age of the software. I gave it all the information. And and it doesn't have access to the software. It only has access to what my team found out about the file. Uploaded the Excel spreadsheet. Develop a proposal for me based on the fact that transaction review is going to be 3 minutes per, and figure in 3 hours of consulting time for the lead accountant to talk with the client. And you saw the results. I sent them over to you. The detail it broke down, and it's basically said it's going to take 159 hours to clean up this file. But it broke it down, and it said, and this part, this function, just reconciliation and allocation, this is what the minutes are, and this is how long it's going to take. And these are the documents that are going to be needed, because it broke it up the way my team did in the Excel file, but it put it into terminology the average business owner could understand, because I said, write the terminology a non-accountant could understand. And it broke up. This is a review of the balance sheet. This all counts, and here's the time it's going to take. Here's a review of the P&L accounts, and here's the time it's going to take. Here's the review of the AP accounts, and this is the time it's going to take. And they had to deal with, in this area, GST and PST for Canada, and what that was going to take. And all of that was going to have to be reconciled. And then because she didn't know if we had to go back to 2019, I took a guess and I said, now redo it based on you're only going to go look at 2022 data and forward. So it redid it automatically for that. And so I typed back in because I looked at the discrepancy. It's 239 hours. So I typed into Claude. I said, "Hey, me." I just said, hey, you, why are the numbers higher and the hours higher for 22 to 25 as opposed to 2019 to 2025 current? And Kim responded, good catch on that discrepancy. We made a mistake. Shall we fix it? And I said, yeah, that would be lovely. So in that
Yes, please.
regard, it was definitely a combination of a team member and a tool. But I
And
will
what did it
tell you
come
this,
back at? What did it come back at? So it was 159 originally, 239. Then what did it come back in
came back with 139. So obviously this file didn't have much activity prior to 2022.
Got it. And or as well, once there's still a bunch of work that needs to be done that once it then gets applied to multiple years, it's a minimal amount of
Right,
time.
exactly.
So you still got to do all this learning, you've still got to do all this classification, but then you can quickly move through the years once you've got that information.
But when I
Just
sent it
just
back
sort
to
of
the accountant,
yeah.
her response to me was typical. Wow, did you use an app for this? And I said, yes. And she goes, and does it cost money? And I'm going,
Yes, it does.
but the one thing that she came back with was, she goes, if I hadn't have seen this, I would never have charged him for this stuff. I said, yeah, because you would have attacked the file from first the balance sheet and the profit and loss. And then you would have asked for a few things. And then you would have had to stop. And then you would have asked for more. So your proposal wouldn't have been built out. You would have done it piecemeal. So you weren't going to get the money that you were owed. And
And then
they're going to nickel and dime you. They look at that sheet, and it was 2 pages of bullet pointed. We have to do this, in a time frame to do it all. I said, they're going to understand better what it is you're actually doing for them. And you can simply say, and this is how much it's going to cost you. And if you don't like it, go ahead and take it to somebody else and see if they'll do it cheaper.
Because think about what would have happened without that. They would have said it's going to cost this much to clean it up because based on a quick look at the file, it'll take 30 hours. They would have gotten to the 30 hours and then gone, oh shit, and then we have to do this, and so therefore you're having 6-7 conversations to get to that 139 159 hours versus really understanding the file, using the tools available to you before you get into it.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, remember I told it 3 minutes per transaction for either data entry or review, which is, which, to tell you the truth, my team said,
A bit high.
my team said, well, we could do it quicker. And I said, no, because if you do it too fast, you'll miss something. So give yourself the extra minute.
Give yourself the space.
And
Yep.
she said, and she just called me today again. She goes, I never would have considered my administrative time. I said, if you don't pay attention, because she got on my case about the admin time. And I said, look if you don't prep before you start working, do you get on an airplane? What does a flight attendant and the flight crew do? They sit down, they do a checklist, they tick off everything. The flight attendants, they're stocking the shelves, they're putting the coffee pots on, they're moving stuff. Everybody's preparing for taking off. The task is to fly us from point A to point B. But before they close that door, they have a series of items they have to do. And then when they land, they have another series of items they have to do before they open that door. Now, they fly that route every day, probably 2 or 3 times a day. Right? Same with back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
It's a task, repeat.
But they still do it.
But they still
Yeah.
do it. Why? Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to fuck up. And people's lives are at stake. Well, we're just doing accounting and nobody's life is at stake. But
isn't it funny though that was she going to charge for her admin time, or were they going to charge for their
She
admin
said
time?
I
No.
had no idea how much time I was leaving on the table. I said, we can
Yeah.
certainly do the work for you without any prep time and without any end of day close up, but don't start calling me every day to find out what the team did.
Yeah.
Because we structured her financial sense to, because she wasn't using it properly.
Using that properly.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a really interesting point for listeners. Just on an aside, if you were prior to getting this into Claude, because obviously the team took some time to review the file. You then put it into Claude. What do you think? Do you have a sense of what you would have budgeted for it? Like if Claude came back at 139, where do you think you would have landed through your? Because you've got a fairly robust process in terms of discovery and timing of activities and whatnot. Where do you think you would have landed?
Well, am I billing it for my India crew or am I billing it for US
Oh,
Canadian?
no, I think from an hourly perspective, because you said 159 hours, 139 hours. Where do you think you would have landed from an hour
Oh,
perspective?
if I had just looked at their Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
she, most people look and go, oh, you need these 10 queries answered. But those 10 queries were pretty in-depth if you answer them. And if you don't look, they had broken down each of the months. There were subsequent pages in that spreadsheet. It took video like 5 hours to go through the file and develop the spreadsheet. It took Claude all of 5 minutes to write a 2-page proposal that was very in-depth and calculating the time for each section to be done.
And interestingly, so it came out at say 139 hours for the most
2022.
recent years. And I could almost imagine sitting down with the client, looking at 139 hours with the detail that comes with it. The client, not to say that the client won't care, but the client will have a much greater understanding of what you're actually doing versus QuickBooks cleanup.
Well, not only that,
And
it's a learning opportunity for the client. Look, you let this get behind.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you let it get behind because you didn't think your bookkeeping was worth paying for. And now you have no option but to clean it up.
And I think one lesson for listeners as well is if you're trying to take advisory services to your clients, to prospective clients, and they don't know the value of bookkeeping, then it's going to be really difficult for them to understand the value of advisory, because it's really within the numbers and the clean books, timely books that allow you to get into to go on to this value added work. So I would encourage you, if you don't know it yet, make sure you're able to really communicate, articulate the value of good quality bookkeeping to your clients early, because that's the start of the value add process.
Yeah, and it's simple. If you don't want to, you can, then have the discussion. Is there part of this you wouldn't want me to do?
Now, yeah, exactly. Now, Penny, we could
Right
talk
out
about
loud.
this engagement.
Yeah.
We could talk about the engagement process and proposal process for another couple of hours, which we will in future episodes. But today it was really around AI. So we've talked about it as a tool, as a team member, and I think we've sort of come to the conclusion that it's both. But I myself, as a sole proprietor, I have Perplexity and ChatGPT open all the time, and I brainstorm with them and sort of ask them to do different things, just as I would have asked my team to do that in previous. So I think if it is that great team member, a great sounding board, and then great creative writer, for example, or research or something along those lines. And just like our team members, just like I would get research wrong or mistakes, certainly needs to be reviewed. But let's sort of switch gears now and think about, you've got a team of 80 something accountants sitting in Chennai, India, doing tax, accounting, bookkeeping for US and Canadian firms. Um, some folks would say, and I think you've actually said this, that AI will not replace accountants or bookkeepers, but it will certainly take a chunk of work away from them. What are you doing to make sure that your team has the skills that they need to to stay relevant, to move up the value chain, to ensure that they're not going to get left behind in this new world of AI. What's happening over at Moneypenny?
It's going to take a little bit for it to happen, but it is going to happen. And one of the things is, I'm old enough to have been educated, at least for the first 4 years of my elementary year, in a pre-Vatican II Catholic school. After fourth grade, it became Vatican II. So very strict, but also it was a Jesuit school, and critical thinking and discourse and dialogue, which is part of our everyday education. So, you get assigned a reading assignment, you get sent home, read it at home, come back and discuss it in school. And oftentimes, when you were reading it, you might have in your head something. Then you get into a discussion, just like going to a book club with somebody, and new ideas come about because other people see it from a different perspective. And so one of the things that I've been trying to teach my team is that critical thinking skill. And remember, I'm not putting down India, because I see this also in the United States, in that education, especially a technical education, you tend to focus on just the courses that are technical, that here's your debit credits, if it's left to right, everything balanced in that. And that's a very linear way of thinking. So for years, I've been trying to tell them, and I've been using, no matter how hard it was to get the terminology across, to look at the client holistically. The fact that we handle 198 apps, when we get a QuickBooks file or a Xero file or a NetSuite file or a Sage file, there's usually something else integrated to it. And you can't do your work and then go, oh, let me go over to this other app. You always have to look at it completely as in 360 degrees of all the apps talking to each other, and it's just one big ball instead of just the GL. And I couldn't get that across. They go, yeah, we get it, holistic. And then I read this article, and was looking for something because I was doing that stoic thing for Megan at Bridging the Gap, right? So kind of looking for things based on what I know stoicism is. I ran across this article, and it was about saying complex opportunities that are fixating on crises. And somehow that resonated with me in accountants, because they always seem to be fixated on chaos because they have all this compliance, and the client hasn't sent the data in, or this person has something I need, get it, and it just, everybody always come to us like, and I just wanted something to point out that that's an opportunity. It's not a reason to complain. And so reading the article, it had a picture of a rainforest showing the roots of the trees of the rainforest, and to stop looking at things in a linear mode, look at it as the rainforest and the roots under the tree. And that, I went, oh my God.
Really?
This was it.
That resonated with you or
Not
them?
with me, the whole team.
Oh, wow.
So I did what the Jesuits would have told me to do. I sent the article over, had everybody read it, and then all the leaders got together and we discussed it. And we had, now they don't talk about accounting in this article. There's nothing to do with accounting in this article. It's just, how do you deal with complex issues without losing it? And then I gave them a challenge. I said, okay, you ladies have discussed this. You feel like you have an idea of what the rainforest is? And they're like, yeah. They always say, yeah. All right. Here's your challenge. Now go out there and in the next 3 days, each of you team leaders give me back an instance where you have utilized the concept of a rainforest when it comes to the accounting files you're working on. And remember, the rainforest, the trees, and the other thing, the reason it resonated with me is I do a lot of hiking up in Wyoming, and you're always tripping over roots, at least I am. You have a tree, and the tree is either healthy or the tree is not healthy. You can clearly see it up above. But down below, there are roots. There are roots that come up out of the ground. There are roots that go back into the ground. There are roots that are tied to other, as we said earlier, symbiotic parasites. There's a lot of other things going on. So show me case instances we have. And they brought back ways that they looked at a file with the rainforest mindset in place. And that week, they all gave me one where one of my clients on the way they reacted to the file they were working on. And that there was a noticeable difference.
Really?
So I will attribute a combination of AI, and because I used AI searches for this, and also moving that one step forward and going, okay, now let's create critical thinking strategies. So I'm using AI to gamify the work that they do.
Mhm.
Not every game is an accounting game. Some games are just games that deal with history and geography, but there are ways to get them thinking instead of reacting before they start work. And I think that
I
that
mean, it's
aspect, like me looking at Claude going, how come there's more hours second request with fewer years than in the first one? And the coming back and going, oh, yes, that's a mistake. I accidentally duplicated all of the transactions. Well, and you know,
so it actually so it told you that it told you that it duplicated. Yeah,
it told me
yeah.
it made a mistake,
Which
duplicated.
which is an exact thing that would happen in an accounting firm
Exactly.
if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's interesting because I think you've got two schools of thought in what AI means to future and professional development. And sort of part of me is if you just use AI and chat GPT and that type of thing just to and take it at its word and just then that part of your brain will shrink because it's not being used, it's not being challenged, it's not being just like any muscle, it's not being utilized. And so I think it's up to us as individuals, as professionals, as business leaders, as team leaders to really look at ways in which we are stretching out our team members to make sure that that part of their brain, the critical thinking part of their brain, is continuing to grow and continuing to develop. Because I think that is one big fear of AI in accounting. Um, if we if we don't challenge ourselves and train ourselves, then we will become obsolete because that part of our brain will not be used to working, and the part of our brain which just does the routine work and same thing day in day out, that is what's going to be replaced, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you also look, you also will discover the team members who can become the critical thinkers. Okay.
Yeah.
There is going to be a fewer hands needed touching the keyboard, which we all know causes EBOC, error between operator and keyboard. But there is going to be a higher need for thinking people to make decisions based on the information that's in front of them. You know, my sister-in-law, when I bought my house in San Diego about 25 years ago, sent me a plaque. And she thinks it's funny, but I take that plaque with me. Like I have a copy of it, and I had it put in my house in Wyoming because I love it because it says, do what you can with what you have with where you're at. Well, I am not going to take the word of a bot to tell me what to do. I will look at the suggestions of the bot, and then I will make the critical thinking decision on where I'm going to go next, the information I have at hand for the moment I'm in. Because the bot doesn't necessarily know the moment I'm in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I I just wrote a follow-up email to a following a sales call, and I basically took the notes that came from the chat GPT or Otter or whatever it was, and asked it to write a follow-up email for the sales process. And looked at it, and I was just like, "Oh no, you missed the mark completely here." Again, like a lot of people would have copied and pasted and sent, whereas having a read of it, and I thought typically what I do is I sort of copy and paste it, knowing that I'll be able to take bits and pieces of the suggested follow-up email. Turns out took nothing from it because it just missed the mark of the tone of the conversation, the context of the conversation, what was really valuable to the person on the buyer on the other end of the line. And so it was that for me, as we were preparing for this podcast, was just the perfect example of like, if you're not reading, if you're not paying attention, you could get yourself into a world of trouble. And as a result of just letting the machines do the thinking and do the doing. But it still is a really important part of the process, because it actually got me thinking, hang on, that's not what the prospect said in that phone call. And I think for me, it made me really think about what were the key elements of the
And so you have to
conversation that
put
need
those
to be
key elements in
reiterated.
your question. So you can't just throw something up there. It's the way you set and setting. Okay, set and setting. This is going to be off topic, and you'll probably want to edit
Okay.
this part out. But set and setting is something that we use in the cannabis industry when people would say, "How am I going to feel if I take this?" And I go, "Well, it's set and setting." Well, what do you mean by that? Well, are you taking this because you're like pissed and angry and you want to chill out? Chances are I ain't going to help you chill out. It's all, and what's the setting? Have you just eaten food? Have you just drunk a bunch of alcohol? You can't judge the response if you don't understand the setting that something is in, and the the expectations of what it is that the person wants. So when you write the prompt, you have to set the setting for the bot. Paint a picture for it. You have to tell a story to the app to get the response that you want, just like you have to tell a story to your team member about what it is this client's going to need and what the goal is. In that case, yeah, you have to treat them like a team member.
Yeah. Yeah,
You wouldn't,
absolutely.
you wouldn't just put
I
a
will say,
file to your employee where they don't know anything about the client. You've not given them any information. They don't know anything personal about the client, and then say, go do something with this. Because that's what my team got handed. They got handed that with no prior knowledge of the company or anything. So they came back with a very linear Excel spreadsheet that the accountant went, I can't give that to a client. I'm like, of course you couldn't. But we don't know anything about the
and actually,
client.
th- that's what happens in most bookkeeping teams as well. The partner's out there having the conversation with the client about what's important, what they want to achieve. And very rarely does that actually get relayed to the team doing the work. Instead, they get the file, and complaints are made about the previous bookkeeper or what was done previously, and then they get on with doing it the way they've always done it, without, and we belabored the point in previous episodes, without actually understanding what are the outcomes that are important to the business owner, that this accounting process, this bookkeeping process, is going to help the client achieve.
I think that you would have done better if you had grabbed the audio recording instead of the audio summary and put the audio recording into Perplexity, which, you have to worry about security in this issue if you're going to do this. But Otter does it. It takes that audio and it creates the action points, and it breaks it down pretty well. But set and setting, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if the bot got the inflection, because I certainly got inflection when I was on that call with you, and I got the tone and I could see the body language in her
Yes.
frustration,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the way she wanted to say, she didn't want to say something untoward, and how she had to hold back on some
Yes.
stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the bot's not going to be able to do that unless you have a bot that has can pick up on visual cues and sits in the meeting with you.
Mm. Yeah. Interesting. Penny, what else should we cover in this episode where we're talking about? I mean, we could go on and on and on.
Well,
But
we're already at
anything
35
else?
minutes. I think people might get a little bit bored with this, but I hope that our interview with Chayton gets posted soon, because he and I had that discussion. Is this a tool or a team member? He definitely sees it as a tool.
And folks, we'll get that episode live in the coming weeks as well. A conversation we had with Chayton, who's a recent grad and now working in a cloud accounting firm in the Bay Area. So we'll get that posted soon as well. So Penny, any final thoughts for listeners today?
If anybody wants to, we should post that Forbes article. Take a look at it.
Yep.
See what you think. See if that rainforest doesn't remind you of somebody's books.
I think it's a great analogy, but because in so many respects, whether it's the trees interlocking above, the roots getting nutrients from the same sources, that it's such a great analogy for accounting and bookkeeping and a whole host of other things.
It
but
worked
also,
because,
listeners,
I'll tell you what, you walk down any street in Chennai or Bangalore when I lived there, and there are roots and trees in the middle of the street and everything. So it worked for them. It worked for them.
yeah. But I think for listeners, just go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever and ask it. I want to develop my team's critical thinking. What are some activities or resources that I could use to help do that? And I think we spend a lot of time focused on ethics and legislation and all of that type of thing, product updates for our team training. But maybe we've got to sort of step outside of that box and get some critical thinking training happening to make sure that our team members are using that part of their brain, particularly when a lot of what they do is regular routine, week in, week out, sort of same activity. How are we making sure that we're helping our team work that side of the brain, work that muscle? I think is
And
a really important
get
one.
them used to reviewing the bot and questioning the bot. Because
Putting it back to, yeah,
don't
absolutely.
just accept what the bot gives you. You have knowledge of the client that the bot's never going to have. You have empirical knowledge of the client. You have empathetic understanding of the client that the bot's never going to have. Maybe someday,
Yeah,
but not
absolutely.
right now. Not right now, at least. I don't see much empathy, except that I did agree. Oh, yes, we duplicated all.
Oh, yes. Whoopsies. Which is exactly what your team member would be like. Well,
Oh, God,
whoopsies.
I've
Right.
seen that where people come back and go, Jesus Christ, you duplicated everything because you published everything from text. Half the shit was already in the file. What were you thinking? Go fix that.
Yeah. Because absolutely, that's a perfect example where you accept a transaction, but then send it through with the source document from Dext or HubDoc, and all of a sudden you got a whole host of duplicates in there.
Oh, God, see it all the time.
And
Yeah.
right, Penny, where can people find you if they've got questions for you, if they want to ask any questions? Where can they
LinkedIn.
find you?
LinkedIn, Penny Breslin.
So
I think I'm the only one.
Penny Breslin and Damien Greathead on LinkedIn. You can find us there. If you do have any questions about anything that we've discussed today, if you've got anything that you'd like us to discuss on the podcast, or perhaps if you'd like us to potentially come in and help your firm on any of the topics we've been talking about. The title of our podcast is Not Just the Numbers. It comes from a book that Penny and I co-wrote of the exact same name, and you can find that at cpatrendlines.com. And also, if you have any questions about Moneypenny and the outsourcing that we do for accounting firms, we help with full service bookkeeping, tax preparation, end-to-end tax, and also back office support for accounting firms. We take care of the billing, payroll, bookkeeping for a lot of the accounting firms for their own back offices. So if there's anything that you think we might be able to help with, please don't hesitate to reach out to Penny or myself. Visit moneypennyllc.com for more information. But folks, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please like us, please share us, please follow us, and we'll see you for our next episode. Penny, always a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.